In New Zealand, there was a study done in a town called Dunedin, in which a few thousand individuals were studied from birth into their 20s. What they found was that they could identify a genetic mutation, an abnormal gene, which did have some relation to the predisposition to commit violence, but only if the individual had also been subjected to severe child abuse. In other words, children with this abnormal gene would be no more likely to be violent than anybody else. And in fact, they actually had a lower rate of violence than people with normal genes, as long as they weren't abused as children. A great additional example of the ways in which genes are not be-all, end-all, a fancy technique where you can take a specific gene out of a mouse. That mouse and its descendants will not have that gene. You have knocked out that gene. So there's this one gene that encodes for a protein that has something to do with learning and memory. And with this fabulous demonstration, you knock out that gene and you have a mouse that doesn't learn as well. Ooh, a genetic basis for intelligence. What was much less appreciated in that landmark study that got picked up by the media left and right is take those genetically impaired mice and raise them in a much more enriched, stimulating environment than your normal mice in a lab cage, and they completely overcame that deficit. So when one says, in a contemporary sense, oh, this behavior is genetic, to the extent that that's even a valid sort of phrase to use, what you're saying is there is a genetic contribution to how this organism responds to environment. Genes may influence the readiness with which an organism will deal with a certain environmental challenge. You know, that's not the version most people have in their minds. And not to be too soapboxing, but run with the old version of it's genetic, and it's not far from the history of eugenics and the things of that sort. It's a widespread misconception, and it's a potentially fairly dangerous one.